Bitcoin is magical, and it is truly the innovation. It's like a singularity because it represents the first time in the history of the human race that we managed to create a digital property properly understood. It's it's easy to create something digital, right? Every coupon and every skin on Fortnite and Roblox and Apple TV credits and all these things, they're all digital something, but they're securities, right? Shares of stock are securities. Whenever anybody transfers, when you transfer money on PayPal or Apple Pay, you're transferring in essence a security or an IOU.
Mm-hmm.
And so transferring a bearer instrument with final settlement in the internet domain or in cyberspace, that's a critical thing. And anybody in the crypto world can do that. All the cryptos can do that. But what they can't do, what 99% of them fail to do, is be property. They're securities. Right?
Well, there's a line there I'd like to explore a little further. For example, what about when you, like Coinbase or something like that, when there's an exchange that you buy Bitcoin you start to move away from this kind of some of the aspects that you said makes up a property, which is this non-censorable and permissionless and open. So in order to achieve the convenience, the effectiveness of the transfer of energy, you have to leverage some of these other places that remove the aspects of property. So I mean, maybe you can comment on that.
Let me give you a good model for that. If you think about the layer one of Bitcoin, the layer one is the property settlement layer, and we're going to do 350,000 transactions or less a day. 100 million transactions a year is the bandwidth on the layer one. And it would be an ideal layer one to move $1 billion from point A to point B with the massive security. The role of the layer one is two things. One thing is I want to move a large sum of money through space with security. I can move any amount of Bitcoin in a matter of minutes for dollars on layer one. The second important feature of the layer one is I need the money to last forever, right? I need the money indestructible, immortal. So the bigger trick is not to move $1 billion from here to Tokyo. The big trick is to move $1 billion from here to the year 2140. And that's what we want to solve with layer one. And the best real metaphor in New York City would be the granite or the schist. What you want is a city block of bedrock. And how long has it been there? Like millions of years it's been there. And how fast do you want it to move? You don't. In fact, the single thing that's most important is that it not deflect. If it deflects a foot in 100 years, it's too much. If it deflects an inch in 100 years, you might not want that. So the layer one of Bitcoin is a foundation upon which you put weight. How much weight can you put on it? You put 1 trillion, 10 trillion, 100 trillion, a quadrillion. How much weight's on the bedrock in Manhattan, right? Think about 100-story buildings. So the real key there is the foundational asset needs to be there at all. So the fact that you can create $100 trillion layer one that would stand for 100 years, that is the revolutionary breakthrough first time. And the fact that it's ethical, right? It's ethical and it's common property, global, permissionless. Extremely unlikely that would happen. People tried 50 times before and they all failed. They tried 15,000 times after, and they've all generally failed. 98% have failed, and a couple have been less successful. But for the most part, that's an extraordinary thing. The layer one is the foundation for the entire cyber economy. And we don't want it to move fast. What we want is immortality, immortal, incorruptible, indestructible, right? That's what you want, integrity from the layer 1. Now there's layer 2 and layer 3, and layer 2 I would define as an open, permissionless, non-custodial protocol that uses the underlying layer 1 token as its gas fee.
So what's custodial mean, and how does the different markets, like is Lightning Network?
So Lightning Network would be an example of a layer 2, non-custodial. So the Lightning Network will sit on top of layer 1. It'll sit on top of Bitcoin, and it solves what you want to do is solve the problem of, it's well and fine, I don't want to move $1 billion every day. What I want to move is $5 a billion times a day. So if I want to move $5 a billion times a day, I don't really need to put the entire $1 trillion of assets at risk every time I move $5. All I really need to do is put $100,000 in a channel or $1 million in a channel, and then I do 10 million transactions where I have $1 million at risk. And of course, it's kind of simple. If I lower my security requirement by a factor of 1 million, I can probably move the stuff 1 million times faster, right? And that's how Lightning works. It's non-custodial because there's no corporation or custodian or counterparty you're trusting, right? There's the risk of moving through the channel, but Lightning is an example of how I go from 350,000 transactions a day to 350 million transactions a day. So on that layer 2, you could move the Bitcoin in seconds for fractions of pennies. Now, that's not the end all be all, because the truth is there are a lot of open protocols. Lightning probably won't be the only one. There's an open market competition of other permissionless open source protocols to do this work. And in theory, any other crypto network that was deemed to be property, deemed to be non-security, you could also think of as potentially a layer 2 to Bitcoin, right? There's a debate about, are there any and what are they? And we could leave that for a later time.
But why do you think of them as layer 2 as opposed to contending for layer 1?
Yeah, actually, if they're using their own token, then they are a layer 1. If you create an open protocol that uses the Bitcoin token as the fee, then it becomes a layer 2.
Okay.
Right? Bitcoin itself, right, incentivizes its own transactions with its own token, and that's what makes it layer 1.
Okay, what's layer 3 then?
Layer 3 is a custodial layer. So if you want to move Bitcoin in milliseconds for free, you move it through Binance or Coinbase or Cash App. So this is a very straightforward thing. I mean, it seems pretty obvious when you think about it that there are going to be hundreds of thousands of layer 3s. There may be dozens of layer 2s. Lightning is A1, but it's not the only one. Anybody can invent something. I think the answer to the question of, well, is corruption possible, is corruption is possible in all human institutions and all governments everywhere. The difference between digital property and physical property is when you own a building in Los Angeles and the city politics turn against you, you can't move the building.
Yeah.
And when you own a share of a security that's like a US traded security and you wish to move to some other country, you can't take the security with you either. And when you own a bunch of gold and you try to get through the airport, they might not let you take it. So Bitcoin is advantageous versus all those because you actually do have the option to withdraw your asset from the exchange. And if you had Bitcoin with Fidelity and you had shares of stock with Fidelity, and if you had bonds and sovereign debt with Fidelity, and if you own some mutual funds and some other random limited partnerships with Fidelity, none of those things can be removed from the custodian. But the Bitcoin you can take off the exchange, you can remove from the custodian. So
it's still possible.
There's a deterrent. There's a deterrent. Yes. That's an anti-corrupting element, and the phrase is, an armed society is a polite society. right? Because you have the optionality to withdraw all your assets from the crypto exchange, you can enforce fairness. And at the point where you disagree with their policies, you can, within an hour, move your assets to another counterparty or take personal custody of those assets.
Well, let's talk about it. So, first of all, I'm with you, but let me ask you this interesting question, because we talked about properties and securities. Let's talk about conflict of interest. So you said you could advertise public. You have a popular Twitter account. It's hilarious and insightful. You do promote Bitcoin, in a sense. I don't know if you would say that, but do you think there's a conflict of interest in anyone who owns Bitcoin promoting Bitcoin? Is it the same as you promoting the farming?
I would say no. There's an interest. I think that you can promote a property or an idea to the extent that you don't control it. I think that the point at which you start to have a conflict of interest is when you're promoting a proprietary product or a proprietary security. A security in general is a proprietary asset. So, for example, if you look at my Twitter, you will find that I make lots of statements about Bitcoin. You won't ever see me making a statement that, say, MicroStrategy stock will go up forever. Right? I'm not promoting a security MSTR, because at the end of the day, MSTR is a security. It is proprietary. I have proprietary interest in it. I have a disproportionate amount of control and influence on the direction.
The control is the problem. The control is the problem, because you have interest in both. You can if Bitcoin is as successful as we're talking about, you are very possibly can become the richest human on earth, given how much you own in Bitcoin, right? The wealthiest, not the richest. I don't know what those words mean.
I would benefit economically.
You would benefit economically.
That's true.
So the reason that's not conflict of interest is because the word property, that Bitcoin is an idea and
it's because
Bitcoin
I
is
don't
open.
Own it.
I
don't control it. In essence, the ethical line here is, could I print myself 10 million more Bitcoin or not? Right?
Can anyone, right? It's not just you, can anyone. Because can you promote somebody else's? Yes, I guess you can. Like can you promote Apple when you have no stake?
You could have a Twitter account where you promote oil, or you promote camping, or you promote family values, or promote, a carnivore diet, or promote the Iron Man, right?
But you're not going to get wealthier if you promote camping, because you can't own a stake in. I mean, you own a lot of Bitcoin. What is that? Don't you own the stake in the idea of Bitcoin?
I would grant you that.
Can you steel me on the case that Dogecoin is, I guess, the second best cryptocurrency, or if you don't consider Bitcoin a cryptocurrency, but instead a crypto property?
I would classify it as crypto property because the US dollar is a currency. So unless your crypto asset is pegged algorithmically or stably to the value of the dollar, it's not a currency, it's a property, or it's an asset.
So then, can you steel man the case that Dogecoin is the best cryptocurrency then? Because Bitcoin is not even in that list.
The debate is going to be whether it's property or security. And there's a debate whether it's decentralized enough. So let's assume it was decentralized.
Yep.
Well, it's increasing at not quite 5% a year inflation rate, but it's not 5% exponentially. It's like a plus 5 million. 5% something. Captain is less. I forget the exact number, but it's an inflationary property. It's got a lower inflation rate than the US dollar, and it's got a much lower inflation rate than many other fiat currencies. So I think you could say that.
But don't you see the power of meme, the power of ideas, the power of fun, or whatever mechanism is used to captivate a community.
I do, but they're meme stocks. It doesn't absolve you of your ethical and securities liabilities if you're promoting it. So like I don't have a problem with like people buying a stock. It's just the way I divide the world is, right, there's investment, there's saving, and there's speculation, and there's trading. So Bitcoin is an asset for saving. If you want to save money for 100 years, you don't really want to take on execution risk or the like. So you're just buying something to hold forever. For you to actually endorse something as a property, like if you said to me, Mike, what should I buy for the next 100 years? I say, well, some amount of real estate, some amount of scarce collectibles, some amount of Bitcoin, right? You can run your company, right? But running your company is an investment. So the savings are properties. If you said, what should I invest in? I'd say, well, here's a list of good companies, private companies. You could start your own company. That's an investment, right? If you said, what should I trade? Well, trading is like a proprietary thing. Like I don't have any special insight into that. If you're a good trader, you know you are. If you said to me, what should you speculate in? We talk about meme stocks and meme coins, and it's kind of sits up there. It sits right in the same space with what horse should you bet on, and what sports team should you gamble on, and should you bet on black 6 times in a row and double down each time. It's fun, but at the end of the day, it's a speculation, right? You can't build a civilization
on speculation.
On it. It's not an institutional asset. And in fact, where I'd leave it, right, is Bitcoin is clearly digital property, which makes it an institutional grade investable asset for a public company, a public figure, a public investor, or anybody that's risk adverse. I think that the top 100 other cryptos are like venture capital investments. And if you're a VC and if you're a qualified technical investor and you have a pool of capital and you can take that kind of risk, then you can parse through that and form opinions. It's just orders of magnitude more risky because of competition, because of ambition, and because of regulation. And if you take the meme coins, it's like, when some rapper comes out with a meme coin, it's like, maybe it'll peak when I hear about it, right? It's like, SHIB was created as a coin such that it had so many zeros after the decimal point that when you looked at it on the exchanges, it always showed 0000. And it wasn't until like 6 months after it got popular that they started expanding the display so you could see whether the price had changed.
That's speculation. Speaking of deep thinking, you're just a human. Your life ends. You've accumulated so much wisdom, so much money, but the ride ends. Do you think about that? Do you ponder your death, your mortality? Are you afraid of it?
When I go, all my assets will flow into a foundation, and the foundation's mission is to make education free for everybody forever. And if I'm able to contribute to the creation of a more perfect monetary system, then maybe that foundation will go on forever. Right?
The idea, the foundation of the idea. So not just each of the foundations.
It's not clear we're on the S-curve of immortal life yet. Like, that's a biological question, and you ask that, on some of your other interviews a lot. I think that we are on the threshold of immortal life for ideas, or immortal life for certain institutions or computer programs. So if we can fix the money, then you can create a technically perfected endowment. And then the question really is, what are your ideas? What do you want to leave behind? And so if it's a park, then you endow the park, right? If it's free education, you endow that. If it's some other ethical idea, right?
Does it make you sad that there's something that you've endowed, some very powerful idea of digital energy that you put out you help put it into the world, and your mind, your conscious mind, will no longer be there to experience it. It's just gone forever.
I rather think that the thing that Satoshi taught us is you should do your part during some phase of the journey, and then you should get out of the way. And
Yeah.
I think Steve Jobs said something similar to that effect in a very, very famous speech one day, which is, death is a natural part of life and it makes way for the next generation. And I think the goal is you upgrade the world, right? You leave it a better place, but you get out of the way. And I think when that breaks down, bad things happen. I think nature cleanses itself. There's a cycle of life.
And speaking one of great people who did also get out of the way is George Washington. So hopefully when you get out of the way, nobody's bleeding you to death in hope of helping you. What do you think, to do a bit of a callback, what do you think is the meaning of this whole thing? What's the meaning of life? Why are we here? We talked about the rise of human civilization. It seems like we're engineers at heart. We build cool stuff. Better and better use of energy, channeling energy to be productive. Why? What's it all for?
You're getting metaphysical on me.
Very. There's a beautiful boat to the left of us. Like, why do we do that? This boat that sailed the ocean. Then we build models of it to celebrate great engineering of the past.
To engineer is divine. You can make lots of arguments as why we're here. We're either here to entertain ourselves, or we're here to create something that's beautiful or something that's functional. I think if you're an engineer, you entertain yourself by creating something that's both beautiful and functional. So I think all three of those things, it's entertaining, but it's ethical. You got to admire, the first person that built a bridge crossing a chasm, or the first person to work out the problem of how to get running water to a village, or the first person to figure out how to, dam up a river, or mastered agriculture, or the guy that figured out, how to grow fruit on trees or created orchards, and maybe one day he had like 10 fruit trees. He's pretty proud of himself.
So that's functional. There is also something to that, just like you said, that's just beautiful. It does get you closer to, like you said, the divine. Something, when you step back and look at the entirety of it, a collective of humans using a beautiful invention or creation, or just something about this instrument is creating a beautiful piece of music. That seems just right. That's what we're here for. Whatever the divine is, it seems like we're here for that. And I, of course, love talking to you because from the engineering perspective, the functional is ultimately the mechanism towards the beauty.
Isn't there something beautiful about making the world a better place for people that you love?
Yeah.
Your friends, your family, or yourself?
Yeah.
And when you think about the entire arc of human existence, and you roll the clock back 500,000 years, and you think about every struggle of everyone that came before us and everything they had to overcome in order to put you here right now, you got to admire that, right? You got to respect that.
That's a heck of a gift they gave us. It's also a heck of a responsibility. Don't screw it up.
If I dropped you 500,000 years ago and I said, figure out steel refining, or figure out silicon chips fab production, or whatever it is,
Fly or
you'd be
fire.
And so now we're here, and I guess the way you repay them is you fix everything in front of your face you can,
Yeah.
right? And that means to someone like Elon, it means get us off the planet, right? To someone like me, it's like, I think, fix the energy in the system.
And that gives me hope. Michael, this was an incredible conversation. You're an incredible human. It's a huge honor you would sit down with me. Thank you so much for talking today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lex.
Thanks for listening to this conversation with Michael Saylor. To support this podcast, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, let me leave you with a few words from Francis Bacon. Money is a great servant, but a bad master. Thank you for listening and hope to see you next time.